Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. I'm Ajay Seelan. On the show tonight, highlights of a panel discussion we've done as part of our roadshow series, where we travel across the length and breadth of the country to connect better with entrepreneurs like yourself. Tonight, highlights of a panel discussion that we did in Mumbai, talking about how the city is shifting from being a financial to a fintech hub. Take a listen to highlights of that panel.
What's happening in the financial space. You, of course, you're very personally invested also in the startup that you've set up at the BSE itself. But sitting where you are you happy with the pace at which things are moving when it comes to innovation in fintech?
So fintech is nothing but bringing the technology and insight and reaching to the last mile to provide the finance in a very smooth way with customers' delight and where they can get funds at the right point of time and in a very easy way. So I think all these things are happening. You know, if you see in 2020, we were, in fact, the fintech space was valued at 2.5 trillion rupees.
Are we doing enough when it comes to protecting our data? Maybe, of course, to you first, Mr. Thakur, but also to the rest of the panel, is enough being done?
See, crime has always happened. It's not something that is new. Whenever you are going to do something new, okay, it can't be, 100% perfect. There is always a scope of improvement. Always we have to keep on plugging the holes. But just to think that there will be crime, you are not going to innovate or bring these products will not be the right thing. You keep on doing all those things. You need to see what is the percentage of that issues, that crime, that's whatever you are talking about, and then keep on plugging the hole and keep on going forward instead of stopping yourself. If you think in the beginning there was crime, but as you go through in last 2-3 years, the crime has come down. There are various checks and balances that all these companies, fintech companies or banks or other financial institutions are putting in place to ensure that these crimes should be stopped. So I think this should not be a showstopper, but of course you have to create a robust system to ensure that such sort of cyber crime or fraud or whatever word you can talk about should be stopped.
I just want to flip that question around a little bit for our other panelists and talk about the cost of compliance, especially for MSMEs and SMEs, because this data protection is not coming cheap if you're a company that is using these financial tools. Your advice, or from your experience, if the two of you would really like to talk about, one, is there enough happening around data protection and awareness of that? And two, the cost of compliance, if anyone in the audience has that question on their minds.
So first of all, we have to understand the question here is of security. And a privacy, let me add that, which you didn't add, right? These two questions are very critical, or you could say very tricky one, because it actually varies individual to individual. You can't generalize it. So both entities and regulators are always in a fix and a flux both. That's what needs to be done. I may be fine putting my password and sharing it with my family members. Somebody may not even share it with his wives or kids. It's that sensitive, right? Now, let me give you the good news first. As far as India is concerned, when it comes to fraud rates, right, I think we are the minimal. And again, payments are usually, which is the industry where I spend a lot more time, is one of the lowest. In fact, to an extent that our country had launched this OTP-based system, which is now followed and lauded across the globe by everybody. While there are ways and means you could do, most of the fraud transaction that happens today, or let's say getting defrauded, it happens only with the customer education issue, where they are lured into giving their, let's say, passwords, their OTPs to someone. So what we need to do is actually work on education a lot more, which I think if you see regulators, whether it's SEBI, whether it's IRDA, whether it is RBI, they're continuously working. We at the association and the entities, it's a continuous effort that we have to do. It's almost, it reminds me of a polio drive. It took 2 decades for us to get everybody vaccinated, or we're doing in COVID. It's that kind of a work. So we can't whisk away these things to go away, but I can tell you that India follows world's best standards, in fact, sometimes more stringent than a global. I can tell you US doesn't have a PIN. And the number of frauds, I know all the relatives, I'm sure Priti and Ajay will have. the number of transactions that they see on their statement, which they haven't done, is still probably 10 to 20% higher than what we have here. So it's statistically, we follow all the standards. On your compliance, well, that's a tricky one, to be honest, because today the regulation does not differentiate so much basis what kind of entity you are. If you have a license, whether you're a 100 crore company, whether you're a billionaire, you have to follow the same standard. And probably exactly from the mindset you asked, because security they want to give, which is the best, and they want to be conservative there. So today the cost for a company, which is whether a $1 million revenue company or a $1 billion company, at a basic level is same. Obviously with the volume it changes, but minimum cost for you to be compliant is pretty high today. And I don't think it will go away easily till the time we find RegTech and a SoupTech to improve, which is the next phase probably.
Sure. Did you want to add to that?
No, just that I think it's also a question, like Navin said, I think it's also sort of a joint effort, right? I mean, credit card fraud still happen, right? They're still misused. So I think it is important for, everything that is, every convenience will come with some sort of learning, some sort of cost. And I think we are in that trajectory right now. But it is very important for us as individuals also to take ownership of that, because if you're using technology, protecting our data, and I have a community, I mean, I talk to a community of women who want to learn about money. So, there are about 15,000 women on that community. I can tell you something, every other day there is a question from one of the women saying, so-and-so platform asked me for the OTP or my Aadhaar card, should I be sharing it, right? So I think there is consciousness, but enough awareness, education needs to happen. You're completely right, but I think we have to, it's our risk, and we also have to take ownership of it. And Sunanda, to your point, yes, I think the cost of compliance obviously is there, but it's something that we all have to live with.
Any other? Yes. Mic to this gentleman here, please.
I am Jayesh, founder of MarketPower.in, which is into fintech space. My question is to Navin first, and second to Thakur sir. First is in the blockchain area and the cryptocurrency and the robo-based trading. So how do you see this moving in next 3 to 5 years? And particularly this cryptocurrency, if this is happening in India, then the entire gap, that banking system is going to be badly affected because it will be a direct transaction. So how do you see this happening in India per se? Sure. And I have a second question for Mr. Thakur after I complete this.
So one of the hat anyway I wear is a advisory board member of Blockchain and Crypto Asset Council. So yeah, it's an interesting question for me that way. And actually it's two technologies you're talking about, blockchain and crypto, and then you're talking about use of combined tokens, which is either a private currency or a government-issued CBDC currencies, right? Now, as far as India is concerned, currently there is no clear law whether it is allowed or not allowed, especially the private currencies are concerned. However, all the regulators today have a guidance, especially RBI, with the banks that anything that happens in that space, especially in trading, they have to be very careful from a PMLA perspective. Because there is a general belief that any transaction that's done on a crypto is anonymous, and probably it's for money laundering. That's not always the case, but that's an assumption. But yeah, there are risks. I won't say that there are risks are not there. So there has been an earlier thought where there was a draft bill which was talking two things in one go. We said that you will ban private currencies. At the same time, you will allow RBI as a regulator to issue a digital rupee, which is a legal tender digital currency in the country. Now, as far as CBDC is concerned, I think the background work has already started at RBI, though they will still have to wait for final parliament sanction or let's say approval for them to actually start issuing it. As far as private currencies and trading is concerned, currently still in a gray zone from a regulatory standpoint of view. I'm saying it's not legal, but it's not clear what the government is thinking. There are certain regulators, they have certain challenges with it. I think the discussions are on. It is expected that some clarity will come in the next session of a winter session. Probably there's some consultation that is going on, basis that. From the industry side, our view is that our country has fundamentally growth drivers, which is our talent and our technology. All the growth that we've seen is actually because of those two. And you yourself made a point that actually these are the drivers for our next changes in the blockchain and the banking and everywhere, right? And it can make things better. So our view is to tell government that let's not be hypocritical like we've been for gambling and many other things, which are actually done and creates gray market. You could easily regulate these spaces. There is a wherewithal of both RBI and SAB. They could easily manage it, and we should rather legalize, regulate it, and manage the risk. That's our view. But there's no clarity, nor I could give any forward statement on this.
Can you
What
highlight
will
something
happen
on the blockchain area? Because if not crypto I can understand.
Blockchain is very clear. There's a lot of work happening. I'm sure Ajay ji will have a lot of points. I think depositories are already moving towards that.
In fact, could you go ahead and ask your second question,
Sure.
and Mr. Thakur could answer it.
So Thakur sir, I would like to understand from you the future of the neo-banking versus the government regulation. Because see, if we have to, if you encourage us, people like us into startup space to, grow. And neo-banking is an area where we collaborate with the bank, and then there is a bank regulations and RBIs and all pitching into. What happens is that there's a scope which we expand, and then there's a stoppage. So how do you like to address this issue?
As far as new banking and all those things are concerned, there are various products and various platforms that are being developed. And let me tell you, many of the banks, especially public sector, even in private sector banks, which are connecting to these platforms, okay, and allowing them to use their products for their, business development and all those things. So I think a lot of developments are taking place there. But of course, there needs to be a proper checks and balances that it should not be misused and all those things. So I think all those things are there. Now, as far as startup space is concerned and how our startup platform is going to connect with that. So let me tell you, India almost for officially or formally, you can say we are the third largest destination of the startups. But if you take it unofficially, we may be second largest startup space in the country. And not all the startups are getting funds. Okay, whatever you are seeing in the newspaper and all those things are those few unicorns. Still, though I don't like, but they are creating huge valuation. Somehow, at some point of time, it doesn't give me a comfort level when the startups keep on making losses for multiple number of years. Then that doesn't give me a lot of comfort level. But still, a lot of developments are happening there. But not all the startups getting funds. So we have started this startup platform so that even those startups which are not getting funds from either angel fund investors or private equity space or the venture funds, they should use our startup platform and can raise funds from the public.
I'm going to slip a short break. More when we come back to Stay Tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow tonight. Highlights of panel discussion that we did in Mumbai as part of our Leaders of Tomorrow Townhall series.
In fact, Navin, you and I were talking about this, offline, talking about how the model of work for most people is changing because of the pandemic, and it's becoming more remote and work from home. Is that possible, though, in an industry like fintech, which is so data sensitive and so regulated?
I think it is. Of course, it was a challenge for the first 6 months of the, let's say, transition, because all the companies who are regulated have to follow a lot of norms about where the data can be stored, how it can be handled. A lot of entities, because of regulatory reason, does not allow you to use your private devices. So there's no bring your own device. Now they had to change to use your device. So you're absolutely right, there has been challenges, but I think this transition has given a solution. And that is what has shifted the culture, that you no longer need to be in a place where you're working. And probably a lot of that trend to a 60 to 70% will continue in a financial services sector. Other than the critical regulatory jobs or risk jobs, where you genuinely need to be present there for certain reasons, I think most of the jobs will be the way it is currently.
This gentleman here with your hand up. Yes, go ahead, sir.
My name is Krishna Raj. So my take is that with too much convergence of technology, the regulators and the stakeholders might not be adequately able to handle it, or may seem to be passing the buck here. Okay, and how serious would they be in terms of grievance redressal in this scenario?
I think we a lot of time underestimate or over-criticize the regulators. The reality is India's success is also regulator success. In terms of, like I've been already talking throughout the course, that number of frauds, percentage of failures, yeah, there are failures, but still if you compare on a global rank, I think we are one of the best financial services ecosystem and a best regulatory managed in the world. Of course, it's like you could always see glass half and a glass half full, both has a scope. So you're right, it is a challenge the way the environment is changing. But let's not forget that we have one of the brightest people. They are actually understanding this. And it's not just them. I think Indians per se are very prudent when it comes to financial services as consumers, as everywhere. So I would say that we don't need to have such a critical view of them. I think they all understand. Sometimes their view may not match you as an individual for something that you do, but they always do things. I mean, there was one of the conference we just had, and this was a DG of RBI. You know, he said that our job at times is not to support and allow innovation to disrupt, but to create space and a time for all the customers and all the ecosystem to assimilate that change. And especially from a customer service point of view, because they know whenever change happens fast, growth happens fast, customers suffer because everybody is not understanding that change. So they need that time, and we create that time. He was very blunt and direct about it, that we are the speed breakers. We have to do it at times. We know people don't like it, but that's our role, and we do it.
One last question. Yes.
My name is Arjun Chatterjee. I run a digital development company, Runtime. One subject which I didn't hear, I came in a bit late maybe, was how the whole the talent pool for the technology of fintech has kind of moved from Mumbai more and more towards Bangalore. And it's become like a sort of a default that that's where the developers, that's where all the tech, sort of core teams are moving. We're really, becoming marginalized from being at the center of it. I know the regulators are here, the exchanges are here, but a lot of the tech fraternity is somehow by default moving out. So, that's a cause of concern from the fraternity I represent. So any views on that?
Good question. Preeti also had some thoughts, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I mean, you're absolutely right. I think Bangalore, and I was just saying that, certain cities have become the hub of tech talent. And it's owing more to the cost of living and just, having your own community. I think people like that, everybody around me is like-minded, right? If I will find a lot of techies, etc. I think what's changed, and I see that very much in my startup, is that with COVID, I think there is a complete sort of paradigm shift in how you're building, and it has probably very little to do with where you're located, right? So for example, I have talent which is located all around the country. So it's no longer saying that I need people to be here in this city, out of our office. I think remote working is something that has, and I think a lot of people say maybe 25%, 30%, I think we will come back, especially in the tech space, right? But I think we've adopted that. And therefore, I could have a developer sitting out of even Ranchi, forget Bangalore. But the team is in 6 different cities, but they are building what they're building. And I think that's been the beauty of COVID. And I'm sure, I said the domain expertise is here in Bombay, and I'm sure we can, ideate great technology companies out of Bombay as well. And I think we're doing that.
Let me qualify your statement further, actually, because that's a slightly generalized statement, and I agree with Priti what she said. If you're looking at a tech plus entrepreneurial kind of a talent who wants to do a startup, they're surely preferring to move to Bangalore. The reason being that it's a lot easier there to raise the capital for them. And most smarter and today, let's say, tech talent, because tech is getting used and becoming the first use case for a business to start, they're becoming entrepreneurs. That's another reason that you're not getting, let's say, right tech talent. And that's not the issue just for Bombay, everywhere, and it's changing, as Priti was saying. So I agree with you that second part, that part of the talent, which is entrepreneurial plus, let's say, tech, is moving there because of the easy capital access. So what we need to find, that do we have energized ecosystem and early stage funding as energized as it is there? Then there are other trends which you will see that it's very difficult to say where is Jupiter as a company, are they Bombay based or are they Bangalore based? Where is Cred? I mean, the problem is that the founder is here, sometimes they register a company here, sometimes they register somewhere else. Suddenly you'll see they register the company in maybe GIFT cities now with their ambitions. So this is also going to be increasingly difficult for you to figure out which city is really growing. And I personally believe that the COVID has already turned out to be a best leveler. It won't matter in the long run. It will be more to do with lifestyle in a city and how's your overall cost of, let's say, cost, not as much as cost, but let's say how's your lifestyle and a living index in a city. So that is what will make a difference.
Okay. Great questions from everyone. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I have to very quickly take closing comments. I want to come to you first, Mr. Thakur. Just bringing it back to our theme. Mumbai, moving from a financial to a fintech hub, but also for the rest of India. What are the maybe one opportunity and one challenge as you see it as we're moving to an increasingly interconnected world financially?
For me, it hardly makes any difference whether, it is in Mumbai, Bangalore, or anywhere. As long as it is in India, I'm happy. Okay, now the question arises why the people are shifting from Mumbai or to Bangalore or to somewhere. Ultimately, it is the acceptability and where the, VCP or angel fund are more ready to give funds. I think it has been more adeptly replied by him. Okay, ultimately, funds matters the most. And if in Bangalore you are putting the company, though you are residing in Mumbai, as long as you are getting funds, it's well and good. But overall, I think this fintech space is growing very rapidly, growing very fast. And when we are talking about digital, I think physical presence hardly matters. Sure. So I think fintech space is growing very well. Only thing where I am little bit worried is that, it should not be more towards valuation, but it moves towards the connecting finance to the technology.
Sure. So being physically agnostic is an opportunity, I would assume, according to you. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I agree with most of the points already what Ajay said, but just to say that I think our challenge remains the core city issues of the Mumbai, right? Which is infrastructure and the lifestyle that you have, traffic, infrastructure. So that has to be fixed if you really want even fintech or any other industry to thrive. Opportunity remains that you have a best connectivity to the regulatory kind of entire ecosystem in the hub. All of them are available here. You can get the best guidance. You can get the best talent on that side, the business side, the everything else. So both remains. And as I said, I agree otherwise with as long as India wins, we're winning. So that's fine.
Preeti, I'll let you have the last one.
So I think if you're thinking like an entrepreneur, there is no challenge. There's only opportunity. Every challenge, there is an opportunity. So I think fintech or any technology, whether it's fintech, edtech, etc., I think it's a great opportunity because it has made, it's opened the doors for a lot of things. I can only see opportunity, and I think all of us here are entrepreneurs, and I think that's the way we are. That's our DNA, that we can only see opportunity. If there is a challenge, means there is an idea there to solve that challenge. So from my perspective, there's only opportunity.
Great. Thank you to the three of you. A warm round of applause for our panelists today. Thank you so much to the three of you.
That's all we could manage to pack into the second part of the Special Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall series coming to you from Mumbai. If you have any feedback for us, do let us know. Our contact details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.